I'm Sharon Schulman. I'm Executive Director of the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy. And as we celebrate our 10th year, please accept my hearty welcome to the presentation of this year's Hughes Center Honors. As we begin the evening, I'd like to call upon the Galloway Township Police Department Honor Guard for the presentation of colors, followed by the national anthem sung by Stockton staff person and alumnus Joseph Sramarty. Would everyone please rise?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Harvey Kesselman, and I serve as president of Stockton University. There you go, okay. Just so you know, before I came on stage, Sharon gave me strict marching orders to stay within my allotted time. And I'm afraid that if I don't, she'll have one of those giant hooks come out to drag me off of the stage. So with that being said, to the Honorable Joseph Biden, we sincerely, yes, the Vice President of the United States is in the house, right? We sincerely appreciate your presence here tonight in celebration of the lifetime achievements of our mutual friend, Ambassador Bill Hughes. On behalf of the entire Stockton community, we offer you the warmest welcome and extend an open invitation to come back to visit us anytime. There you go. To Ambassador Hughes, our esteemed presenters and distinguished honorees, to my colleagues, guests, family, and friends, it is with great pleasure that I welcome all of you to Stockton's third biennial Hughes Center Honors Award ceremony. We are thrilled you could share in this evening's as we recognize the outstanding contributions of 6 exceptional individuals, 6 of our finest New Jerseyans whose commitment to active citizenship and dedication to public service has enriched the lives of so many. In the illustrious words of our most prominent presenter, I say, and I quote, "A lucky person gets up in the morning, puts both feet on the floor, knows what they're about to do, and think it still matters." These words give testament to the drive and determined spirit of our honorees. Together, we salute the commitment to civility and service and offer a heartfelt congratulations on this auspicious occasion. Please join me once again in a round of applause for all of tonight's honorees. And now it's time to call upon one of our most prominent civic and educational leaders, tonight's Master of Ceremony, Dr. Edward H. Salmon. Dr. Salmon, not yet. We're going to shout you out a little bit. Dr. Salmon serves as chair of the William J. Hughes Center Steering Committee and has been a staunch supporter of Stockton and the Hughes Center since its inception. Dr. Salmon has enjoyed an extraordinary career in public education spanning nearly 30 years and an equally fascinating career in public office, serving as a mayor, county freeholder, state assemblyman, and the list goes on and on. Stockton is extremely grateful to have him on our team. Please help me once again to welcome to the stage Dr. Ed Salmon.
What a great evening, and just a great evening to see everybody here to honor our honorees. The turnout has been terrific. And people know that the people we're honoring have made such a difference in our lives. I need to do 3 special thank yous to start out. First, to Sharon Coleman and Callahan, Carter Anderson, and the entire professional staff of the Hughes Center for hard work in making this happen. Second, our distinguished members of the Hughes Center Steering Committee. And third, our 111-member host committee who made this event successful and memorable. Would you give them all a thank you? Now, I was also given time frames, and I'm going to stick to them. My introductions of our presenters is supposed to be 30 seconds. To present the Hughes Center Honor for a Lifetime Achievement Award, we are honored and privileged to have an American patriot who needs no introduction. He is the national model for public service, serving America as a United States Senator and Vice President of the United States. Please welcome the Honorable Joe Biden.
Thank you very much. It's good to be almost home in the area that I spent all of my youth. I was what we used to call in the old days a shoebie. Every weekend I could hardly wait on Friday to get off so I could head to Ocean City in the Chatterbox. They had the best looking waitresses. And I deny the accusation that I used to sleep under the lifeguards' boats on the beach. I'd never tell a lie. I did. And I'm delighted to be joined here tonight by my sister-in-law, who's a lifelong resident of Ocean City, the number 2 of 5 women that I married into, my number 2 sister-in-law, my number 1 sister-in-law, Jan. Where are you, Jan? I was saying downstairs that any of you young men in the audience, if you're contemplating the kind of family you'd like to marry into, find a woman to fall in love with that has at least 3 other sisters. My wife is the oldest of 5 sisters. Now, you know why that's important? And I mean this sincerely. One of them always loves you. Not the same one, but one of them always loves you. Because of the inherent conflict and competition, there's just one of them is always going to take your side. Governor Floyd, it's great to see you, Jim. You're a good friend and you were a great governor. It's nice to be with you. And as we used to say in the Senate, if you excuse a point of personal privilege, and Bill Hughes will understand this, Jeanette Williams is here too. I love Jeanette Williams. Well, there she is. Thank you. Well, Mr. President, And I don't know how you got such an important Congresswoman to get here today. I don't know what, Bonnie, I don't know. Did they promise you a shot at the roulette table or something? I mean, no, you Well, it's a delight to be with you tonight as well. And Kathy, I want to say how much Jim Whelan is missed. It's wonderful that his memory is being honored here tonight. I know everyone regrets that he's not here. They told me to keep it short as well, but I'm trying my best. But I have the great honor tonight, and well, it's not an honor, it's a privilege, to honor a man without whom I think none of us, I know he wouldn't be here because there'd be no Hughes Center. But I'm not sure that my career in the Senate, to the extent that it was successful, would have been successful without Bill Hughes. Bill and I have known each other for 40 years. And in fact, I had the good sense to come and campaign for him in 1974. And he was winning by 20 points, and he won in spite of my coming. He still won, notwithstanding I was here. But that's how long we've known each other. And at that time, this was not blue country at all at the time. And so, because of the people of Delaware and South Jersey, you South Jersey folks may not know it, but we're all basically a big community. I mean, there's an overwhelming connection between South Jersey and my home state. And I just have to I reminded Jim Flory when he was governor that Delaware does own the Delaware River up to the high water mark in New Jersey. I just want you to know that. Not that we need extra space, being the second smallest state in the union. I don't know. Senator, I tell you, I promise, that's the truth. That's the Supreme Court decided that. For 20 years, Bill and I were not only partners in Congress, but pushing things, Bill pushing things on the House side, and while I was working on the Senate side on the exact same issues. But, I'm known for riding Amtrak. I've made over, Bill, when I passed 1,300,000 miles flying Air Force Two, they were in the paper, Biden flies more than 1 million miles, et cetera. And the conductors, the guys I don't remember old Angelo Negri and those guys. Well, I was going home on a Friday. This was a year and a half before the term was up. And Ange comes out and he goes, "Joey," grabs my cheek like a Secret Service. He said, I said, he's okay, he's okay. He said, "Joey." He said, the retirement dinner they have once a year in North Jersey? He said, "We were at the dinner." I knew the dinner he meant. He said, "We're talking about 1 million miles in Air Force Two. Big deal." He said, "You know how many miles you traveled on Amtrak, Joey?" And I said, "No, Ange, I don't know." He said, "You averaged 217 days a year for 36 years, and you still go Amtrak. We estimate 8,320 round trips on Amtrak, 259 miles round trip, as Bill well knows." He said, "Joey, over 2,100,000 miles." And right after that, someone said to me, "I guess they named a train station after you in Wilmington because you always support Amtrak, because that's a bad thing." I said, "Hell, they should name the whole Northeast Corridor after me all the time." But I rode an awful lot of those miles with this man right here. And he was my seatmate, or I was his seatmate. Only he had that drive between here and Wilmington, and he'd get on that train, we'd ride down together, and we'd ride back together, and back to D.C. And you can do a lot of business on that commute, but a lot of the time, Bill and I just spent talking about our families and just getting to know one another, checking in with one another. We both had young kids at the time who we didn't want to move to Washington, and we weren't, and we felt more comfortable them being in our home districts anyway. And what a joy it was to see your big, beautiful family here tonight, Bill. I got to meet them briefly backstage, children, grandchildren, and I think there was even one great-grandchild. You got me there. You got me beat there. And, but by the way, any of you, you grandparents out there have a daughter who gave birth to a daughter for you? Well, you found out already, granddaughters are better than daughters. No, I tell you why, only one reason. One night you tuck your beautiful little daughter in bed as a dad, about age 12 and a half, and you kiss this little butterfly goodnight. The next morning you get up and there's a snake in the bed. Dad, drop me at the corner. Dad, don't kiss me in public. Why do you cheer so loud at my games? Dad, Dad, Dad. They all come back somewhere between 19 and 22. Mine waited till 22 to come back. But now it's, Daddy, you're not hydrating. Daddy, like in the last campaign, Bill, Ashley took off the last month because she thought I needed her, and I did, with her on the campaign trail. So, but granddaughters, they always not only like their grandpa, they always not only love, they always like. I had one up at Penn, we're walking down the mall, said, can we hold hands, Pop? Can you imagine doing that with your grandpa? Well, so granddaughters are something else. But anyway, the entire Hughes family, I want to say what an honorable and decent and wonderful father, grandfather, husband you have. I mean, this is one of the things that Bill embodies everything that's now, today, all too rare in American politics. You know, if my dad were here, he'd look at your kids, Bill, and say, his expression was, you've got good blood, kid. You've got good blood. Your family has really good blood. There's no one has ever questioned your integrity, Bill. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate the help you gave me. We were both on the train together and up on the hill together. It's that we both worked on the Judiciary Committee. Bill ended up chairing the House Subcommittee on Crime while I was chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee. And we plotted together, planned together, worked together. And we worked together on dozens of pieces of crime legislation, maybe as many as 50 over that time, Bill. I went back trying to calculate it all. There wasn't any major crime bill that was promoted safety that you weren't part of, that you didn't sponsor. Bills that made it harder for drug dealers to take money out of the country for money laundering. Bills that kept fully automatic assault weapons off the street because of Bill Hughes. And every time you think we haven't gone anywhere, remember the god-awful fight you had, Bill, to eliminate cop killer bullets? Bullets that were designed to pierce the vests of police officers? It was a fight. It was a fight. And Bill led it. There's no doubt in my mind, Bill, that the work that you did in driving those efforts has actually saved lives. And you were an early and passionate environmentalist back when people really realized the environment was a problem. I don't know what the hell happened lately, but you know, the fact is that there's nothing that you've been engaged in, Bill, that hasn't been good. You know, we had to fight for several years just to get people to pay attention to the problem that was happening off our shores, shore of Delaware and New Jersey. Companies were polluting. Beaches were in jeopardy. You know, and the work you did, Bill, helped ensure that future generations, not just your great-grandkids, but everyone's, are still going to be able to enjoy the summers at the beach, or you, as we say here, summers at the shore, swimming in unpolluted waters because of you. And as if 20 years fighting for the citizens of South Jersey wasn't enough to merit a Lifetime Achievement Award, you followed up by your stint as a diplomat, as an ambassador to Panama at a really critical time in our relationship with Panama. You led the year-long process for a peaceful and successful return of the Panama Canal and our military bases to the Panamanian people. And Bill, and we talked about this, my word, President Obama and I, when we were talking about normalization, you know, he put me in charge of the hemisphere and the Northern Triangle and that whole area. And we talked about, we set off when we took over, we said we want to change the relationship. It's not our backyard. These are our we're not there to tell Latin America what to do. We're to cooperate with Latin America and change the entire environment. And it started with you in Panama, Bill. It started with you. And we're in much better shape than we've ever been in the history of the relationship in the United States. You know, the fact of the matter is that if we're going to get a chance, by the way, anybody who ever has a chance, you probably won't, but have a chance, you ought to go see the eighth wonder of the world. It's the new Panama Canal locks that have been built. It is astounding, absolutely astounding. You can put twice as much tonnage through on a ship. You're talking about the ability to fundamentally alter commerce internationally, and it's happening right now. And it wouldn't have happened if I had not started with you, Bill. Bill's lifetime of achievement doesn't really cover it. Your accomplishments and contributions could fill many successful lives, but far better than any award you could receive tonight is the knowledge that your legacy, Bill, continues to inspire new leaders through this Center for Public Policy that bears your name. It's a place where students and young people can continue to learn the lessons that are essential to getting anything done, the things that really matter, sitting down together. You know, Bill, when I went up, everybody talks about how broke the political system is today, and it's broken. The political system is broken. Think about it, folks. The irony is, the American people agree more on specific subjects today than they did when Bill and I got started. Back when we got started, we're in a situation where there was incredible division over the Vietnam War, incredible division over environment, incredible division over issues relating to women's issues, and so on. But today, on every major issue, even extremely controversial issues like same-sex marriage, it goes from 56% of the American people support it to 68% of the people support, for example, infrastructure and being engaged internationally. But what's broken now is the political system. The political system is broken in a way that just has to be fixed. You know, when Pete Williams, even, you know, back in the old days, Clifford Case was a senator, and then Jim, when you're governor, and just go down the list. We actually knew each other. We talked to each other. We respected each other. We disagreed, but we showed respect to one another. Today, it's different. Today, ask your colleagues who serve in the Congress. Ask them, do they really know anybody on the other side? You know, it's really hard for me to dislike you if I know you have a son or daughter that has a problem, or that you're suffering from cancer, or you have a bad back, or your parents are in trouble financially. It's hard to dislike you. It humanizes it, even though you fundamentally disagree. The biggest difference today I see in the time that Bill and I arrived in Washington, we don't talk to one another anymore down there. I'll give you an example, Bill. In the House, you guys used to eat lunch together. In the Senate, there was a private Senate dining room where senators could go and just sit with one another, Democrats and Republicans. And we get to know each other. I mean, I said, when you get to know someone, it's hard to dislike them. It's hard to view them as the enemy. They're the opposition. And so I went over at the end, 18 months left to go in the campaign. If you recall, every time there'd be a disagreement with the Congress and the administration, I'd get sent up to the Hill. It's because everybody knows I respect the place. I respect the people who serve there. The Congresswoman knows that, for real. And so I decided there were some new senators I didn't know, so I was going to go up as vice president, because I'm president of the Senate, to sit and have lunch with them. I walked in that dining room, Bill. There's no tables anymore. The tables are gone. There's no place in the Senate side where two senators or three senators of the same or different party can actually have lunch together other than their own office. It doesn't exist. And so, folks, those hours on the train with Bill were precious precisely because we spent so much time learning about one another and talking about things that mattered to us. That used to be a standard to build relationships with folks with whom you disagreed. If you excuse, again, another point of personal privilege, when I first got to the Senate, I actually really didn't want to go. I got elected when I was 29 years old, and on November the 3rd and December 18th, a tractor trailer broadsided my wife and 3 children who were Christmas shopping and killed my wife and killed my daughter. And my 2 boys were really badly injured. You covered it at that time. And I didn't want to go. I didn't think I could be a good father and a senator at the same time, and they were still hospitalized. But a group of senior senators came to see me, Democrat and Republican, and said, look, your wife worked hard for you to be here. Only 1,703 people had ever had the job, et cetera. Just come for 6 months. And I would show up every Tuesday at 3 o'clock with Senator Mansfield, a man of enormous integrity. Not a single Democrat or Republican ever questioned his integrity. And to get an assignment. Well, I thought all senators got assignments. No senator ever gets an assignment. But I'm the first senator I ever knew. And so I'd go in. No, really. I'd go in, I'd get an assignment. It took me about 8 weeks, Jim, to figure out what he was doing gently, was just taking my pulse, seeing how I was doing, how I was handling, the loss. And about, it was the last week in May, I walked on the floor for my appointment to go across the floor of the Senate. You see that gold gilded, doorway you walk in. And I walk across, I'd always stop and ask the President of the Senate when the last vote was going to be. And then I'd go have my meeting with Senator Mansfield. And I walked in, sat in front of his desk, as I always did, and he looked at me and said, what's the matter, Joe? Because as I walked in, Jesse Helms from North Carolina was excoriating 2 friends of mine, one who's still alive and close to me, Bob Dole, a Republican leader, and the other was Teddy Kennedy, because they introduced the precursor for the Americans with Disabilities Act. And he was up there saying, why should we ever have to pay for a curb cut? It's not the responsibility of the public to take care of the handicapped. I thought it was just heartless. And so he asked me what was bothering me, and I went on about Jesse Helms for a couple minutes, saying I thought he had no social redeeming value. How could he feel this way? And no, I was passionately upset about it. I didn't understand how he could do that. And he looked at me, Senator Mansfield, and said, he said, Joe, what would you say if I told you that in 1969, Dot Helms, Jesse's wife, and Jesse were sitting in their living room in Raleigh, North Carolina, reading The Observer, the Raleigh paper. And there was a picture of a young man in steel braces up to his hips, down both legs, with steel crutches, 14 years old, looking out and saying, all I want is someone to love me and take me home. What would you say, Joe, if I told you Dot and Jesse Helms adopted that young man as their own son? I said, I'd feel foolish because I questioned his motive. He said, Joe, it's always appropriate to question another man or woman's judgment, but it's never appropriate to question their motive because you don't know. And once you question motive, you can never get to go. If I say you're in the pocket of, or I say you're not a decent person, and I go on, it's hard to ever reach an agreement. But as far apart as you can be in an issue, you can still get to go, get to compromise, if it's about the issue. Well, that was the hallmark of Bill. Everybody respected Bill, still does. Everybody respected when Bill sat down with them. He listened. He just didn't speak. He was passionate about what he cared about, but he listened. And when he disagreed, he did not attack. He did not talk about the other person having a bad motive. And he reached agreement, moved the process along. You did the same thing as a diplomat, Bill. You have that touch. You have that ability. You have that sense of all politics is personal. And it is all personal. And it's only through consensus and cooperation that the United States can continue to function. We're the most heterogeneous democracy in the history of the world. And there's no other way. In order for a democracy like ours to continue to function like it should, it requires a certain sort of honorable citizen, to paraphrase David Brooks. One that tells the truth, one that defers to a shared moral order, has people devoted to lives of common purpose. David Brooks, in an article I'd highly recommend a couple weeks ago in the Times, points out that our leaders have outsized influence on either weaving a moral order by their good example or ripping it to shreds by their bad example. That's where we are today. That's where we are today. It's a good example of what's lacking at the highest levels of government, not just this administration, but as things have begun to deteriorate in terms of the way we talk to one another. But Bill, that invisible moral fabric which holds this country up, which allows our constitutional system to work, is something you've always intuitively known. I think that your continued work here at the Hughes Center to advocate for the return of civility and bipartisanship in our politics is going to end up being yet another of your lasting contributions to our democracy. Bill, I know everyone here tonight is eager to hear from you directly. And so just let me end by saying, Bill, as we Irish, my grandfather Finney used to say, the highest compliment a man could be given would be to say, Bill Hughes, you're a good man. You're a good man. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador Hughes. Are you speaking now? Yeah.
Wow, what an act to follow. Joe, thank you for those very kind and generous remarks about our work together and about your feelings about our relationship. Mr. Vice President, it is really a singular honor to have you here tonight to present me with this Distinguished Service Award. Along with Senator Harrison Williams, one of New Jersey's great senators as a legislator, you inspired and befriended me early on in my congressional career, as you indicated. I first learned, really, of your candidacy for the United States Senate about 45 years ago, when I was watching TV, and on Philadelphia TV came one of your ads where you pledged to clean up the Christina River and Brandywine Creek in Delaware. Coincidentally, as you suggested, I resigned from the prosecutor's office in 1970 to run for Congress to clean up the ocean along the Jersey and Delaware shores. I say without hesitation, Joe, that for your nearly some 50 years in public service to the people of Delaware and our great nation, that history will judge you as one of America's great leaders and statesmen. We miss you immensely. It was interesting, as we passed the dining room tonight, people were yelling out, Joe Biden, we miss you. And I hear that from a lot of people, Joe. And as I've listened to you on TV recently and tonight, you sound more and more presidential, don't you think? Mr. Vice President, it was truly a pleasure to work with you on drafting and enacting the law. And you're right, about 50, sometimes major crime bills, which you always put in comprehensive packages. But let me tell you, they did make a difference because they're among the many tools that law enforcement uses today. You've mentioned some: money laundering, forfeiture, terrorism, anti-terrorism, product tampering, computer crime, credit card fraud, and child pornography. I'm sure that you also vividly recall, and I certainly do, our passage over fierce opposition, a number of sensible crime bills, including, as you've mentioned, armor-piercing ammunition, ban on semi-automatic weapons, as well as the first comprehensive gun background check. These are tools that have been used by law enforcement for many years, and still to this day. I'm sorry to say, however, that it is not the case with some of our gun legislation that we pass. For example, the ban on assault weapons or military-type semi-automatic weapons was dropped by a recent Congress, as you know. The ban on armor-piercing ammunition is now under attack in the Congress. And the background check has been seriously weakened over the years. It is enough to make one want to run again for Congress. Not quite, not quite. And I must say, Joe, I thank you for the work you did. I don't think I've ever thanked you. The work you did in holding into the McClure-Volkmer Act, the ban on machine guns. Can you imagine the carnage that we'd see today? And we saw it in Las Vegas. They converted that semi-automatic to an automatic weapon, and they killed a record number of people, mercilessly. First, and I also do value very much all the rides we had and talks we had on the train from Wilmington to Washington, D.C. They were wonderful years. And Joe, I do forgive you for the many times we appeared on talk shows, along with Arlen Specter, when I couldn't get a word in edgewise. So thank you for your friendship and for your wonderful work over these many years. You have strengthened many of our institutions. Thank you. I also and what an audience tonight. I look out at the audience and I thank all of you tonight for your support of this event that not only honors our recognized honorees tonight, but benefits the Public Policy Center that sponsors this honors program. I'm happy to report that we have exceeded our goal, our target, and we now have over $2 million in the center's endowment to help fund our programs. It's wonderful tonight to see so many of my fabulous congressional staff. Here tonight are my former administrative assistants, John Spear and Mark Brown, who came in from Florida, and Jay Kirkin, my legislative director, and John Meraz, who ran our district offices, and Liki Nika, who was a great part of our staff. I'm also pleased to see so many longtime friends and generous supporters of my work over the years. Permit me at this time to introduce the members of my staff, my family that are with me tonight. Regrettably, my wife Nancy, the love of my life and a partner in every way for some 61 years, is not able to be with us tonight. However, she is certainly here in spirit. Thank you. As you may know, our family is our pride and joy, as Joe indicated, as his is. And I'm happy to say that all of our children and many of our grandchildren are in the audience tonight. I would like at this time to ask them to stand as I call their names, and also request that you not applaud if you're inclined to do so until they've all been introduced. First, our daughters Lynn, Barbara, and Tama. Where are they? Over here? Please stand. And their husbands, Doug Walker and Barry Sullivan. Our son Bill and his wife Stephanie are here. And now our grandchildren, Kristen, Barry Jr., and Brian Sullivan, Johnny, Charlie, Patrick, and Ryan Hughes, Billy's little boys you saw running around earlier. They were at the reception. I'm very proud of them. Thank you for being here tonight. Permit me also to congratulate tonight's other honorees. Representative Coleman, Senator Allen, Kathy Whelan, and their son Rich, who are here accepting the award presented to our dear friend, the late Jim Whelan. He was a wonderful mayor and a senator for many years, and we miss him dearly. Dr. Brigid Harrison and Maryam Sarhan, thank you for being here tonight, and congratulations on your awards. You justly deserve them. We would not be here tonight but for the warm and generous support of Stockton's very fine president, Harvey Kesselman, the Stockton Board of Trustees, and its outstanding faculty. In just 10 years, the center has made a real difference as it focuses on good public policy in our region and throughout the state. Its success is due in no small measure to the hard work and forward-looking stewardship of its executive director, Sharon Shulman. Thank you, Sharon, for a very fine job. I also want to thank and recognize the tireless efforts and able leadership of my longtime friend and political ally, Dr. Ed Salmon, the chairman of the center that we celebrate tonight. I want to thank Ed's staff for their work, because they have worked tirelessly to make this event such a huge success. And since its inception, Ed has made the Public Policy Center a real treasure throughout our region. Last but not least, I want to thank former President Herman Sodkamp and former Provost David Carr for their vision, strong support, and perseverance in forming the center some 10 years ago. I'm delighted to see my colleague, Jim Florio. We were elected to Congress in the same year in 1974, and Jim, it's nice of you to join us tonight. As for me, I view my almost 50 years of public service as truly a labor of love, just like Joe Biden has, it's obvious. I am thankful to God for giving me a wonderful constituency and the opportunity to serve our communities in this great country for so many years. I have loved every bit of the work I've done over those years. I remember fondly my years on Capitol Hill, the committee work and floor debates, the talented members that I was privileged to work with for so many years, the interesting people that I met, the challenge of making good public policy, the basic civility and tolerance that Joe talked about, and the recognition of other points of view, the wonderful collegiality and goodwill, and above all, the willingness, the compromise that prevailed at that particular time, making it possible to create that good public policy. We have a lot of work to do, Joe, throughout this country in restoring those necessary qualities that you spoke to earlier. I remember seeing, not long ago, a few years ago, Chris Dodd, and he said to me, Bill, walk down to the Senate dining room and look in there. You won't see any senators in there talking to one another. We don't know one another, and we have not developed that collegiality. It's just unfortunate that, as Joe has said, the system is seriously broke. We have a lot of work. Finally, I vividly recall those many nights after a late night session of Congress, walking down the Capitol steps, weary but happy and very proud, only to turn around and look back at that beautifully lighted dome and the hustle and bustle of activity on the Capitol steps and around the grounds. And just for a moment, would reflect on just how blessed I am to be there, the son of a carpenter and working mom, a part of helping to make democracy work in one of the most revered institutions known to man. That scene said a lot about the humility, pride, and satisfaction I feel about my 50 years of public life. So thank you, one and all, for making all of that possible and for your continued support and good wishes. Drive carefully going home tonight. Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing presentation by our Vice President and our former Congressman and Ambassador. To present the Hughes Center Honor for Excellence in Civic Engagement Award, we're honored to have a great friend and former legislator in residence at Stockton University. Our presenter is extremely happy today. This past Tuesday, he achieved the largest election victory in his 21 years of public service. For the past 8 years, he has worked tirelessly for the people of New Jersey as our New Jersey Senate President. Please welcome the Honorable Steve Sweeney.
Thank you. Thank you. It really is an amazing honor to be in the presence of our Vice President, who I wish was our President. Yeah. Our Ambassador, congratulations, Ambassador, and to the greatest governor the state ever saw, Jim Florio, the man that had courage. And not just because he's from South Jersey, Harvey. Not just because he knows the roads down here, but this was one hell of a week for me, just so you know. But I am thrilled to be here. You're hearing earlier speeches about civility and how we don't get along anymore. And unfortunately, that's true too often. And it's bittersweet for me to see Diane leave. Look, on one end, I got a Democrat. But on the other hand, I lost someone we could work with. Diane was always someone that was willing to listen. She's always someone that was willing to listen and work with you. And regardless of the issues, we had an issue just recently. That it was a woman's issue, and she was passionate about it, and one of my members wasn't being as reasonable as they should have been. And Diane kept compromising and kept compromising and kept coming back and compromising. And she's just a person that cares. You know, too many people care about the title. They care about, I'm a senator, or I'm this or that. Diane actually cares about the people. She always did, and that's why she always won election over and over again by amazing numbers. It wasn't about her TV personality. It was about Diane Allen, the person. Diane, I am so sorry to lose you, because you've been a wonderful friend and a fierce fighter. And, you know, we in South Jersey, you know, we have a chip on our shoulder at times because we think we get screwed a little bit up north. You know that. And one thing, hey, listen, I'm getting better. I would have used a different word before. But we in South Jersey always stuck together, whether it was Republican or Democrat, to ensure that our voices in our region was represented and treated fairly. So Diane, this is really a wonderful opportunity for me to say thank you publicly for everything that you have done, not just for the state of New Jersey, but I'm a little regional, but especially for South Jersey. Diane, congratulations.
First, I want to thank Stockton and Dr. Kesselman for having this here, and the Institute, Sharon and Ed and all of those who are involved. What a great event. Thank you so much for including me. I have to say, as I listened to the Vice President talk about how things have broken down, I had to agree that quite a bit of that I see in New Jersey. But as Steve Sweeney has said, as the president of our Senate, there are those who do work together. Steve and I have always worked together. It doesn't matter what party we are, doesn't matter what gender we are, we work together because we know it has to be done. We see others who don't, for whom being a Republican or a Democrat is more important. But I'm thankful, and I think it's important that you know, that there are those who are Republicans and Democrats who do care about the people and who do work together. Bonnie Watson Coleman was always one of those people when she was in the legislature in New Jersey. And I'm sure she still is now. Jim Whelan, my goodness, what a wonderful gentleman Jim Whelan always was to work with. My husband and I happen to have a property in Atlantic City, so I've always been interested in Atlantic City. And whenever he had something he needed to do, he'd come and talk to me. He was on the other side of the aisle, but he didn't mind crossing that barrier because he knew we could work together on something. I know that when I first covered Jim, when I was back on Philadelphia television and he was the mayor, I knew I could count on what he said to me. I knew he was an honest guy. He always was, and he will be remembered that way forever. I think that you need to feel that while we're seeing this craziness in Washington, and Lord knows it needs to change, that we need to see people working together, that we have that in New Jersey in many, many ways. I'm thankful that civility is a topic that is being discussed and that it is being honored tonight. It is something we must do, and it is something I will say that my husband feels very strongly about. And so when he starts yelling at the television, I know civility's gone out the window somewhere because he won't brook that at all, and neither will I. It is something that we must work for. It is something that we must look for in our elected officials and make sure the people that we put in our town councils, on our county boards, in our state legislatures, and in Washington, that they're willing to work with others for our benefit. Thank you very much for this honor.
You know, this evening's actually a very difficult night because our friend we were hoping would be here to receive this award. When they announced it, he was here. And you know, Jim Whelan wasn't just a big guy. You know, he was a giant. And, you know, we used to joke that, you know, he always heard, oh, and I want to thank the Congresswoman also for being here, and congratulations, Bonnie. We're really proud of you. But Jim Whelan, we used to say, you know, Jim Whelan was a great mayor. He said, you know, he's the one that hasn't gone to jail, you know? And Jim would cringe. But, you know, Jim is along the lines of Diane. There wasn't a bad bone in his body. He would do anything for anyone at the drop of a dime. He loved people. And I got to tell you, my members in my house, on both sides, they loved him. Because you could always count on Jim. You go see Jim and you say, hey, listen, we got this. And he said, I don't know about it. I said, Jim, look, I really need you on this one. And, you know, he would process things the way he would process things and come back, so I can do it. But don't forget I did it. I did it because you asked me to do it. And I said, no, you did it because you're my friend, and I appreciate that. Jim is a giant, was a legend. It is so bittersweet. At his memorial, I said, I am sad beyond belief. That pain has not left because, you know, Jim was just a unique individual that, again, we're talking civility. Not a better person. A person of class and dignity and humor. He was just very, very special, Kathy. And, you know, I get a little upset thinking about him often. So before I fill up too much, I want to thank you for being here, and God bless Jim Whelan.
I'd like to thank and congratulate all the honorees tonight, and also thank Bill Hughes for bringing his good friend with him tonight. That was a treat for everybody, I'm sure. And thank you to President Kesselman and his wife Lynn and the board for this honor. Jim was very excited when he heard he was going to get this honor, and he really looked forward to being here tonight. But I mean, Stockton was very important to him, very close to his heart, and we enjoyed looking out our back window, seeing the progress of Stockton's school and dorms coming up, you know, from close to the boardwalk, and he was very pleased that Stockton actually ended up in the right part of town. Anyway, he really was happy about that. So on behalf of the whole Whelan family, I would like to thank you very much for this honor.
To present the Hughes Center Honor for Distinctive Alumni Leadership Award, we're honored to have a person who has had a very successful career in government, business, and education. She's retiring this year after 10 years of exceptional leadership for the William J. Hughes Center for Public Policy. Please welcome the Executive Director of the Hughes Center, Sharon Shulman.
While we can teach political activism and civic engagement in college, in my experience, civic engagement starts at home from the earliest days. Those are the words of an alumna of Stockton University and the recipient of the Hughes Center's Distinctive Alumni Leadership Award, Dr. Brigid Callahan Harrison. As I started to prepare for telling you why we chose to present this award to Brigid, I wanted to move off just her resume. In itself, it's quite impressive, and accomplishments include political science professor. By the way, she got a very high grade from Rate My Professor from the students, higher than mine. Author of textbooks and many published journal articles. She's a commentator on state and national politics in many venues, including NPR and Network and Fox News and NJTV. and she has her columns and editorials published in both local and national publications, such as the New York Times and Politicker New Jersey, and many more. Her political and civic engagement is long and storied and includes leadership roles in the New Jersey Political Science Association, the National Women's Caucus for Political Science, and locally, her activities have included Doctors Without Borders, United Way, American Cancer Society, the Women's Center, and more. I asked Brigid, though, to give me more insight, to tell me more about what influenced her in her youth and in college that helped shape her into the engaged citizen of today. And now it got much more interesting. Brigid told me how her first lessons came from her father, who was a councilman in Camden County when she was a youngster. Not only were community topics discussed in the home, but as a family, they were involved in their town. She reminded me that this was during the Vietnam War and Watergate eras, and that these topics were discussed at the dinner table, something she still tries to do today with her own children. And then she told me how Stockton fit into her political and civic engagement development. One of the biggest impetuses was her time as a news editor of the school's paper, The Argo. This stint enhanced her skill set, fanned her passions to be informed and active in Stockton's community, and acted as a springboard for graduate school and then a lifetime of civic and political engagement. Is it any wonder, then, that the Hughes Center Steering Committee selected Dr. Brigid Callahan Harrison for this Alumni Leadership Award? Not at all. My sincere congratulations, Brigid, to my colleague and sister Stockton alumna.
Thank you, Sharon. Ambassador Hughes, Governor Florio, Congresswoman Watson Coleman, victorious Senate President Sweeney, Senator Allen, and President Kesselman. Kathy, wish my friend Jim Whelan was here. It was a tremendous personal loss for all of us. I'm honored to share tonight with these distinguished honorees and to receive the honor bearing the name of my dear friend, Bill Hughes. I ran Bill Hughes's campaign many, many moons ago. I would say it was probably about 30 years ago, which is dating both of us. And from that time, we all knew that he was a man of integrity, he was a man of honesty, he was a statesman, and he lived his life as exemplified by his children in an uncompromising way personally, but in a compromising way politically, which was exactly what our district and the country needed. I want to echo the words of the Vice President that in an era in which we are encouraged to hate, when our nation, our state, and our communities are being torn asunder, indeed even our families are being torn asunder by the politics of hate and divisiveness, it is so very important to honor in particular our legislators who are willing to reach across the aisle, who are willing to compromise, who are willing to encourage others to judge people on their actions rather than the circumstances of their birth. I think that those are the ideals that embodied Bill's career. They are the ideals that embody the Hughes Center, and frankly, they're the ideals that embody Stockton. I also want to just take a little minute to thank my family, my husband, Paul Malak, my children, Caroline, John, and Alexandra, my surrogate mom, Shirley, and my sister, Rose, and her husband, Dan. Today is my sister Rose's birthday, and it's a big one, so thank you all for being here. Thank you for this tremendous honor, and I look forward to seeing all of the work that the Hughes Center will do in the future to continue to fill Bill's enormous legacy.
To present the Hughes Center Honor for Civility, I'm going to mention that word, civility, because that's what the Vice President was talking about. Civility in Government and Politics Award. We're honored to have a New Jersey higher education legend. He has served 35 years with distinction as the president of Thomas Edison State University. He is a perfect person to introduce his best friend. Please welcome the president of Thomas Edison State University, Dr. George Pruitt.
Well, good evening. You know, I've followed the vice president in a lot of things, and I sat and watched him bypass the stairs and hop up on the stage, and I was inspired to do the same thing. And then I had this image of pain and humiliation as I was helped off the floor and dragged up to the stage. I agreed with the vice president's assessment. I think we all do. I think any rational observer of the human condition and the political condition of this country, there's one inescapable conclusion. He also cited the risk and perils and cited us as a diverse democracy. And history tells us there's really no precedent for a diverse democracy surviving over time. And we're only about 250 years old. In the life of history, we are still infants. And so we have a lot of work to do to save this wonderful experiment. And I fight the cynicism that the rest of you have to fight and deal with. And then I get hopeful because we're still able to recruit and attract and send people to Washington like Bonnie Watson Coleman. When I was asked to do this, I smiled for about 3 hours. And I know that I was asked to do this because Bonnie and I have been extraordinarily close. She's been my sister for 35 years. And I think I was invited to do this because I would say things about her that you won't see on the program. I invite you to read it because it describes a very distinguished career. But I want to take a minute and talk about this wonderful woman that I've known so closely for so many years, about the things that aren't in the program. I don't want to talk about her achievements and her accomplishments. I want to talk about who she is as a person and why she has done the things she has done and why we should all be so proud of her and why this honor is such a fitting recognition. You know, this is kind of a homecoming for Bonnie. She served here with distinction as a trustee for many, many years, and so Stockton is in her veins and in her blood. Having said that, I want to quickly point out that she's a graduate of one of the finest public institutions in the United States. To understand Bonnie, you first need to understand that Bonnie Watson Coleman was her father's favorite daughter. Now, that's just not a fact of biology. It's important because her father was an extraordinary man that was committed pretty much all of his professional life to public service, and it infected his daughter. So she grew up not aspiring for personal ambition, for self-enrichment, for the power, but she was called to serve. And she spent her entire life following that calling. The other thing you need to know about her is that she is a woman of great faith. And that great faith makes her a free woman. And it's wonderful being free. Bonnie gets up every morning and looks in the mirror and prays for guidance and struggles to find the truth and the courage to act on the things that discovering that truth requires. She's a loyal member of our party, but she's not controlled by her party or polls or by pundits or by politics. She is driven by a deep and abiding commitment to find out what is the right thing to do to serve the people that invested her in their trust and sent her to Washington. The things that she has to deal with are the hard, complex issues, and they're not simple, and they're not easy. And her struggles are not driven by aspirations for power or position or even acknowledgement. Bonnie Watson Coleman gets up every day and works in her district. She works in her office because in a real and very powerful sense, public service and service in the Congress is her ministry. And she moves with that calling, supported by her faith and her family, and we are all the better off for her doing that work. Bonnie Watson is not part of the problem in Washington. She's part of the solution in Washington. Bonnie's been my very dear friend for a very, very long time. She's an extraordinarily talented and bright woman, but she also has one of the biggest hearts of anyone I've ever met, and the courage to act on what her intellect, her heart, and her faith tells her is the right thing to do. So it is a great joy for me to be able to have the privilege of coming here and introducing the sister I always wanted, one of the most talented people I ever met, one of the most wonderful people that I've ever run across, the representative from the 12th Congressional District of New Jersey to the Congress of the United States, the Honorable Bonnie Watson Coleman.
My God, thank you, George. That was amazing. I asked him, don't make me cry, and don't be too long. And we accomplished both. I am just so honored to be introduced by you. I am so honored to be here. So first, let me just get this out of the way. It's most important to me. I thank God for this opportunity to be here. I thank him for having given me the capacity, the opportunity, and the space to work that I think is important work, and the ability to give back from a family who taught us that that was our responsibility. I'm delighted to be here with you, Mrs. Whelan, because you know how much I so admired your husband. He is indeed a good man. I'm so delighted to be here and be honored by the Hughes Center because, Mr. Ambassador, I have definitely been a fan of yours and your son Bill's, and I love the way your family assembled for their Christmas picture. Harvey Kesselman is someone that I watched grow up. And when it was time for him to be president, there was nobody cheering harder and louder than me that Stockton College University needed Harvey Kesselman because he knew that school in and out, loved it more than anybody I've ever met. And Diane, Allen, and I attended the same elementary school, just a few years apart. But we were in the legislature at the same time, and she was in the Senate and I was in the Assembly, and we were from different parties, but we did manage to be friends and to share interests and to share opportunities, and congratulations and God bless you. It's good to see Sharon, and Dr. Salmon is also an inherited friend from my dad, John Watson, and he stays in touch with me even now, and I'm just so delighted to have him in my life. Brigid is brilliant. I watch her. I really love her political thoughts and her dissections and her resections and her hopefulness and her disappointments. And Maryam is the face of our future, and I am delighted to be here with her as she is being honored. I have a family that I am blessed abundantly with. My husband, Bill Coleman, my brother, Bill Watson, and his wife, my sister, Donna Watts, stand up. My brother, Jay Watson, and his wife, Deborah Watson, and my baby brother, Aaron Timothy Watson, and his beautiful daughter, Erin Marie Sanderson. My county executive was here, Brian Hughes. He traveled all the way down here. He told me he was going to share this moment with me because he knew how important it was. It is important for me to be recognized by Stockton, a school that I loved, adored, and grew up and learned so much from. It is an honor to receive an award with the Hughes Center and name associated with it. But ladies and gentlemen, it is a blessing to be able to do the work that's needed on behalf of others. There are great opportunities that the vice president, vice president, could be president, should be president, vice president, and Ambassador Hughes both mentioned that were important then or important now. Gun safety legislation being number one. The recent mass killing, the only common denominator between all of these issues that's happened, these terrible, horrific events, is that there are guns in the hands of wrong people, and there are wrong guns accessible to the wrong people. And Congress must take that issue up. And we will not give up until we do. And then there are other important issues, whether or not it is the environment or education or just our standing in the international community. All of it is on the table right now. And I just thank God for the opportunity to be down there and to lend my voice whenever I can. Let me say one last thing about bipartisanship and civility and things of that nature. I'm spending a lot of time trying to get to know my Republican colleagues. I live in the same building as many of them, and I try to say hello just to get to know you because I find that this hyper-partisanship is just destroying our country. And I will do my part to love country above party. And I simply ask that they do the same. So you pray for us in Washington because I believe in the power of prayer and demonstration, and it's those things that are happening on our streets here in the state of New Jersey and around the country where people are praying and they are demonstrating. And with that in mind, I ask you to keep hopefulness alive because we, this beautiful democracy, we are better than what we're experiencing right now. God bless you.
Wow, what an evening. We have an outstanding person to represent and to be honored next. To present the Hughes Center Honor for Distinctive Student Leadership Award. We are honored to have an individual with a lifetime commitment to Stockton. He was in the first class of students, class of 71, and has given 46 years of professional service and leadership to Stockton. January 2016, our friend was inaugurated as the president of Stockton University. Please welcome the president of Stockton University, Dr. Harvey Kesselman.
What an incredible night, huh? I'm happy I'd mentioned it, but in the past 46 years of service with Stockton, I've had the great privilege and honor of coming into contact with a number of truly impressive student leaders. Some are here now. You heard from Brigid. There's Nellie, there's Ray Ciccone, and many, many, many others. They all exhibited unique and special qualities which made them effective in their positions. But from time to time, over the course of one's career, you will come across that one student who stands above, head and shoulders, above all others. One whom we honor tonight, and that is Maryam Sarhan. Her vision, her confidence, her focus, and her determination is a model for all leaders, not just student leaders, to follow. To look at her extensive resume, one might think he were reading that of a seasoned professional, given all her accomplishments, her awards, and all of the accolades that are listed. But being that we have a limited amount of time, I will share with you just a brief but descriptive bio. Maryam is a recent graduate of Stockton, where she earned her BA in political science with a pre-law concentration. At Stockton, she served in many leadership capacities, such as our Student Senate President, 2 years as a student member of Stockton's Board of Trustees, the head delegate for the National Model United Nations, a member, she's got some fans out here tonight, and we want to hear you when we bring her up, of the Atlantic County Advisory Commission on Women, and a student representative on the Hughes Center Steering Committee. These are just but a few of her many leadership positions at Stockton. She was also one of the original student pollers for the Stockton Polling Institute. And by the way, the Stockton Polling Institute got every single race right. So I want that to be known out here. Always working to advocate and empower her peers, Maryam spearheaded negotiations with Stockton administrators, the entire cabinet, to establish Stockton Safe, a campus safe zone for all students. She's received so many awards, we simply would be here all night if I brought them all up. Currently, Maryam is based in Washington, D.C. as a congressional fellow on Capitol Hill, and our entire community could not be more proud of her accomplishments. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the next generations of leaders, and let me be very clear, I've met a lot of fantastic students with extraordinary character and integrity. This epitomizes those two words. Ms. Maryam Sarhan for the Distinctive Student Leadership Award.
Thank you, Dr. Kesselman, for your kind words. I'm incredibly humbled and grateful to receive this award. First and foremost, the opportunity for me to be up here is because of two incredibly exceptional individuals in my life who decided to take a one-way flight from Mansoura, Egypt, exactly 16 years ago. I will never be able to give proper thanks for the sacrifices you have made for me, Mama, Baba, and the unconditional love, support, and guidance you share with me continually. To my brothers, Aboud, Hisham, thank you always for the special bond that we share. Secondly, I am here due to my mentors, friends, professors, and Stockton family. Thank you for your support, encouragement, and always allowing me to plant myself where I can grow. Though there are so many who I hold in high regard, there is one mentor who holds a very special place in my heart. Dr. Kesselman, you have taught me the art of balancing the stick from the middle without compromising my values of justice and equality. Something that I deeply admire about you, as well as Vice President Biden, is your ability to passionately and fiercely advocate for the causes that you hold dear. Those are the qualities that inspire me as a leader. Being an effective advocate and leader is no easy feat or task. It was Steve Jobs who said, if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader, sell ice cream. I hope Vice President Biden doesn't take offense, because we all know how much he loves ice cream. I will always cherish my time at Stockton, and I hope that I'll be blessed with more opportunities to continue my passion for public service. Thank you once again for this honor.
What a wonderful evening we've had. Before we dismiss to the reception, may we congratulate once more tonight's distinguished honorees and presenters. One more time for that. I would also like to recognize members of our Stockton Board of Trustees and our Foundation Board here with us tonight. They're in the first row. Please stand up and be recognized, please. Every day, the community of Stockton University works hard to provide a high-quality, affordable, accessible education to our students. And programs such as tonight's help us to do just that. The Hughes Center is known for its mission of engagement, education and research, and has achieved astounding success. The center has sponsored candidate debates, lectures, symposia, and happily boasts of other initiatives and programs such as Legislator in Residence, some of who were here tonight, Congress to Canvas, Washington internship programs, the Stockton Polling Institute, to mention few. Tonight, I am happy to publicly announce our next sponsored event. On Tuesday, January 23rd, and thanks to Bill Hughes Jr., we will host an academic symposium featuring our newest member of the United States Supreme Court, Justice Neil Gorsuch. So stay tuned. Yeah. Last but certainly not least, tonight would not have been possible without the outstanding efforts of our Hughes Center team under the direction of Executive Director Sharon Schulman. Sharon has a long history with both Ed Salmon and Ambassador Hughes dating back to the 1970s, where she first volunteered with his campaign by stuffing envelopes. By the late 80s and early 90s, Sharon worked with his campaigns, has also consulted for many Southern New Jersey political campaigns. Later, as Chief of Staff to then Assemblyman Ed Salmon, Sharon worked with Ambassador Hughes' congressional staff, primarily in New Jersey. So needless to say, she was the perfect candidate to head up the Hughes Center. Sharon, a Stockton alum, took the reins as the founding executive director in January 2008. And now, after 10 years of dedicated service to the university, Sharon has announced her retirement. She has been a visionary for the Hughes Center with a proven record of success. To name just a few of her accomplishments, Sharon secured Stockton's first $500,000 matching gift and spearheaded the raising of the match that became Stockton's first $1 million endowment. The endowment has since nearly doubled, and tonight's raising of nearly $300,000 helped to get us there. So a warm round of applause for that. She procured an additional $1 million gift to be used for students with financial hardships. She's organized numerous high-profile symposium and lectures with notable guests such as former UN Ambassador Bill Richardson, sitting and former Governors John Corzine, Tom Kean, and U.S. Attorney Chris Christie, and established all of the programming previously mentioned tonight to include this particular event and much more. So Sharon, can you please return to the podium and accept the gift on behalf of the Stockton Board of Trustees and the entire Stockton community? Thank you all for coming this evening. For those who can stay, please join us for dessert and coffee in the Bayview foyer. For those who must leave, have safe travel homes, and thank you for being with us tonight, all of you.